Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The soft clink of glass breaking echoed through the sterile fragrance vault, followed by the faint hiss of a scent escaping its shattered home. Amara froze mid-step. Her eyes darted to the floor, where a delicate vial lay in fragments, its golden liquid soaking into the polished tiles. The air around her shifted, warmed, then bloomed into something achingly familiar. No, not just familiar, it was hers. She knelt slowly, ignoring the sting in her knees against the hard floor. She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a thin, white blotter strip, and carefully dipped the tip into the spill. Holding it to her nose, she closed her eyes and inhaled. At once the scent unfolded, layer by layer. Green fig, subtle and earthy. Burnt saffron, warm and bitter. Moroccan rose, elegant and subdued. A whisper of black cardamom. Then, at the very end, a faint sea fennel drift that made it linger like a memory at the edge of waking. Amara's throat tightened. She had created this. Every note, every ratio. This wasn't a copy, this was a theft, a footstep behind her. She turned. Julian stood at the entrance to the vault, hands casually tucked into his lab coat pockets. "Code 9, he said, nodding at the mess. "Fiona's latest masterpiece? Shame about the bottle," she blinked. "Fiona?" He nodded with a smirk. "You didn't hear? It's been selected for the Paris showcase. Everyone's raving about it. They say it's revolutionary, feminine yet bold, just like her." "But," she stammered, the blotter still in her hand. "This is my formula. I created it." Julian raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Sure you're not just mistaken. You know how things get when we work late nights. I never submitted this formula. I didn't even save it to the company server." He laughed gently, patronizing. "Then maybe your subconscious did. Or maybe you left your notes lying around. You know how Fiona likes to draw inspiration." Her chest tightened. The way he said inspiration made her stomach churn. This wasn't the first time something had felt off. But this was the first time they'd been bold enough to steal her soul and wear it as perfume. Maison Vellier was not a place for accidents. Every wall was pristine white, every surface spotless. Founded in 1894, the laboratory had survived wars, revolutions, and 3 generations of gatekeeping. It was the birthplace of legends. Getting in required more than talent. It required sponsorship, social acumen, and invisible privilege. Amara had gotten in on talent alone. That was the problem. She didn't come from a lineage of perfumers. She didn't spend her summers on the Riviera. She didn't even drink wine. She was the daughter of a sari shop owner from Jaipur, with a PhD in olfactory chemistry and a dream of reimagining scent as emotional language. Her acceptance into the lab had been treated like an accident by some, a charity project. The diversity. Intern? She wasn't even an intern, but that's how they treated her. They mocked her ideas, sneered at her earthy ingredients, called her methods folk science. She smiled through it all, told herself to be patient. She'd prove herself through her work, but now that her work was finally being praised, it wasn't her name they were cheering, it was Fiona's, and Fiona knew it. That night, Amara sat alone in her flat, her laptop open in front of her, the vial still fresh in her mind. She pulled up the lab database and searched. Code 9, the formula file loaded with a flash, creator, Fiona Leclerc, date. Submitted February 14th, 2025, Amara's breath caught. That couldn't be right. She had mixed and tested that scent on February 12. She remembered it clearly. That was the day she'd burned her hand, adjusting the distiller temperature, and had wrapped it with bergamot-scented gauze. The scent lingered on her skin for hours. She scrolled deeper. Then she saw it. User activity log. ID AR271. Accessed at 2:17 a.m. on February 13th. Her ID. She wasn't in the lab at 2:17 a.m. She was at home, icing her hand and watching her sister's wedding video. She hadn't logged in that night. Someone had used her credentials. The realization hit her like a slap. They hadn't just stolen her idea, they'd broken in, erased her proof, and left a new author in her place. And now she was locked out of her own creation. The next day, Amara called the only person she trusted who might understand the stakes. Zane. She hadn't spoken to him in nearly a year, not since their joint research on scent mapping Himalayan orchids had won them a science award in India. He'd taken a job in digital forensics after that, helping companies track internal breaches. "Someone stole your scent," he said, incredulous, after she explained. "Like literally hacked your perfume." "It's more than that," she whispered. "They used my USB, logged in with my ID, then deleted the original formula and uploaded it under someone else's name." He let out a low whistle. "Do you still have your notes?" She nodded. "I handwrote the original ratios. I was working late, and I never trusted the digital systems." "Smart. Bring everything you have. And send me a sample of the stolen perfume if you can. I want to smell what all the fuss is about." Back at the lab, things were moving fast. Fiona's scent was now the centerpiece of the new era of elegance. Campaign, marketing banners were going up, photo shoots were scheduled. Her name was being whispered in corners, like she was the next Chanel. Amara felt like a ghost in her own lab. She kept her head down, collected the evidence, avoided confrontation. She needed more than a confrontation. She needed a coup. Late that night she found Emile, the janitor, sweeping the rear corridor. "Hey, Emile," she said, smiling. "Strange question, but do you remember cleaning up a green USB near the lab vault, maybe around February 13? He frowned, thinking. "Small green stick? Yeah. Thought it was trash. Tossed it in the disposal chute." Her heart sank. "Was it destroyed?" He shook his head. "Not yet. Chute leads to the locked bin. Things get shredded only once a month." That was her opening. The next night she returned. Gloves on, heart racing. Emile let her in. She dug through the disposal unit, hands shaking with every piece of shredded paper and crumpled foil. Then she saw it. Green plastic, scratched but intact. Her USB. She clutched it to her chest like a sacred relic. Back at Zane's lab, he plugged it into a secure terminal. "Most of it's wiped," he muttered, fingers flying across the keyboard. "But there's residual metadata and a few thumbnails. Look, here's one." He clicked. A faint, low-res image popped up. It was a scan of her handwritten formula, a timestamp. Her name, the same formula now being paraded around under Fiona's. "Amara," he said, his voice low. "We've got them." She leaned back, breathless, but she wasn't smiling. "This isn't enough," she said. "If I go to HR, they'll bury it. If I confront Fiona, she'll lie. I want everyone to know, publicly, visibly." Zane looked at her for a long moment. "Then you need to fight them. With scent." 2 days later, the perfumers returned to the lab after lunch to find something unusual at their workstations. A single, unlabeled vial. No branding. No notes, just a white tag with one handwritten word, "Stolen," and beneath it a small, elegant card that read, "Before you celebrate a lie, smell the truth. Ask Fiona where she found it. The real creator." Gasps echoed around the lab. Several people immediately opened the vials and sniffed. One by one, their eyes widened. It was the exact formula, the so-called Code 9. Only this version, this one, had something more, something alive. It opened cleaner, it lingered deeper. And the final dry-down note, an impossible blend of fig and fennel, moved people in a way they couldn't describe. The scent didn't feel manufactured. It felt human. Fiona entered the lab moments later, holding her espresso cup, ready for her. Spotlight. She stopped mid-step, staring at the rows of open vials. "What is this?" she snapped. No one answered. They were all staring at her. Then someone whispered, "Where did you say the inspiration came from, Fiona?" She froze. And across the room, Amara stepped forward for the first time in weeks, eyes calm, hands steady. "I'd like to know that too." The room was charged with a silence so thick it felt like a physical force pressing down on every chest. Amara stood at the center, eyes locked on Fiona's sharp, surprised gaze. The vial in front of Fiona was no longer just a mysterious bottle. It was evidence, a silent witness to the truth that had long been buried beneath layers of corporate polish and false smiles. For a moment, no one moved. Then Fiona's lips curled into a tight, forced smile. "This is some childish stunt," she said, voice dripping with disdain. "Who put this here?" Julian stepped forward, his expression unreadable, but his eyes flickering with something like caution. "I don't know," he said smoothly, "but it's causing quite a stir." Amara's voice cut through the tension, quiet but unwavering. "It's my formula, the one they stole." A ripple passed through the gathered crowd. Whispers bloomed like wildfire. Someone cleared their throat. "Stolen." A young assistant repeated disbelief in her tone. "Yes," Amara said, stepping closer, the courage she'd hidden for so long now shining bright. "I created that scent. Fiona used my notes. She took my work and claimed it as her own." Fiona's eyes narrowed. "Accusations without proof are dangerous. But we have proof," Amara said, pulling a thin folder from her bag. "Handwritten notes, dated lab logs, and digital evidence. Someone even logged in with my credentials to delete my original files." The room held its breath. Then Julian sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "We can't ignore this," he said quietly. "HR will need to investigate." But Amara knew better. She had spent months trying to navigate the labyrinthine politics of Maison Vellier. The HR department was not on her side. They were protectors of the brand, the legacy, the elite. Amara was an outsider, and outsiders were liabilities. Her phone buzzed quietly. A message from Zane. "How's it going?" She typed back, "HR meeting scheduled. Doesn't feel hopeful." The meeting was a cold affair. The room was glass-walled, overlooking the sprawling city below. The senior HR manager, Madame Duval, sat at the head of the table, her posture perfect, her smile polite but sharp. "So, Dr. Rani," she began, using Amara's formal name, "we appreciate your dedication to Maison Vellier. However, these are serious allegations. Do you have tangible evidence beyond the notes and vials?" Amara nodded, placing a USB drive on the table. "Yes. This contains metadata logs showing unauthorized access, deleted files, and partial recovery of my formula. Images." Duval's eyes flicked to the drive, but didn't move to open it. "We will review this carefully, but accusations of theft could have severe repercussions. Are you prepared for the consequences if these claims are unfounded?" Amara swallowed hard. "I'm prepared for the truth to come out." Duval's smile tightened. "Very well, we will conduct an internal review. Until then, you will be asked to refrain from further access to sensitive projects." The words hit Amara like a blow. She had been sidelined, silenced in the name of fair process. Back in her small apartment that night, the weight of the day pressed heavily on her chest. She stared at the vial on her desk, the scent that had become her battleground. Zane's voice on the phone was steady and firm. "This isn't over. I'm working on retrieving more digital footprints. The lab system isn't airtight." "Thanks, Zane. I don't know how much longer I can keep this fight. You're stronger than you think. Remember why you started?" She hung up and looked out the window. The city lights shimmered like distant stars, cold and indifferent. The next morning, an unexpected visitor arrived at Amara's door. A man in a tailored suit with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor introduced himself as Inspector Marc Delacroix from the city's cybercrime unit. "I've been assigned to look into a data breach at Maison Vellier," he said, showing his badge. Amara's heart skipped. This could be the break she needed. "May I come in?" he asked. She nodded, stepping aside. Over coffee, Amara laid out the timeline and her suspicions. Inspector Delacroix listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes. This kind of corporate espionage isn't uncommon in high-stakes industries. Like perfume, he said, especially when there's a blend of proprietary chemistry and brand prestige. "Do you think I'll get justice?" Amara asked, voice low. "Justice is complicated," he replied, "but with the right evidence, the truth can't stay hidden." Amara felt a flicker of hope. Meanwhile, tensions inside Maison Vellier were boiling. Fiona and Julian held emergency meetings, trying to manage the sudden storm. Marketing had paused the Code 9 campaign. Rumors leaked, whispers of theft and scandal. Fiona's confident facade cracked in private. She had always relied on connections and charm to protect her position. Now, those shields were faltering. Days passed. Amara and Inspector Delacroix dug deeper, tracing digital trails and security footage. A pattern emerged. Late on February 12th, someone had accessed the secure lab vault using Amara's credentials. The footage was grainy, but the figure was unmistakable. Julian, the man who had smiled at Amara just days before, dismissing her claims. Confronting him would be dangerous. But Amara's resolve only hardened. One evening, Amara received a cryptic email from an anonymous sender. "Meet me at the old library at midnight. I have proof that will change everything." Her pulse quickened. Was this an ally? A trap? She debated for hours before deciding. She would go. At midnight, the ancient library loomed in the fog. Inside, dust motes danced in moonlight, filtering through. Stained glass, a shadow moved. "Amara," a hushed voice called. She stepped forward to see Emile, the janitor. "I couldn't stay silent anymore," he whispered. "I've seen what they're doing behind the scenes." Emile handed her a battered notebook filled with scribbles and dates. "These are my notes, times when files were moved, keys swapped. The night Julian accessed your account, I was cleaning the vault corridor and saw him enter with a keycard he's not authorized to have." Amara's hands trembled as she took the notebook. "Thank you," she said. "You're not alone in this," Emile said. "There are others who want the truth out." Armed with Emile's evidence, Amara felt a renewed strength. The next morning, she handed the notebook to Inspector Delacroix. Together, they prepared to confront the executives. The showdown was set for the weekly board meeting. Amara sat across from Fiona, Julian, Madame Duval, and others. With Delacroix by her side, she presented the evidence: data breaches, security footage, Emile's notes. Faces paled, denials gave way to shifting glances. Julian tried to defend himself, but the proof was overwhelming. The board was forced to act. Maison Vellier suspended Julian pending investigation. Fiona's campaign was halted indefinitely. Amara was reinstated, her projects restored. But more importantly, the air had changed. For the first time, the lab was forced to reckon with its own darkness. Yet the fight was far from over. Amara knew this was just the beginning. Behind every perfume was a story, some fragrant, some bitter, and hers was only unfolding. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Maison Vellier's grand conference room, casting long shadows over the polished marble floor. Amara sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the wall, as if searching for the strength to face the storm that was about to break loose. She had been reinstated, but the battle was far from over. Julian's suspension had sent ripples through the company, but the board's decision felt like a fragile ceasefire rather than a victory. Across the room, Fiona sat with a practiced calm, her lips pressed into a thin line. She was waiting, calculating, a predator in a cage. Amara's phone buzzed. A message from Zane. "Have you checked your email? Urgent." She unlocked her phone. An anonymous email awaited, subject line, "The truth behind Code 9. Her heart pounded. She clicked it open. Inside were several high-resolution photos, behind-the-scenes shots from the lab, candid moments of meetings, and most damningly, a series of private chat screenshots between Fiona and Julian discussing how to manipulate the lab's records. We have to make sure no one suspects, one message read. Erase all traces of her work. Amara swallowed hard. This wasn't just theft, it was conspiracy. She forwarded the email to Inspector Delacroix and Zane, adding a note. This changes everything. The inspector responded immediately. Meet me at my office. We need to plan next steps. The office was dimly lit, filled with the low hum of computers and scattered papers. Delacroix spread out the new evidence on his desk. This is the smoking gun, he said. Emails like this can bring down careers, maybe entire companies. Amara leaned over the photos. The faces were familiar, but their smiles seemed twisted in the harsh light of truth. Why would they go this far? She asked. Power, Delacroix said simply. In a place like Maison Vellier, reputation is everything. They'll protect it by any means. Days blurred into nights as Amara, Zane, and Delacroix built their case. They interviewed staff quietly, piecing together the whispers that had once been drowned out by the noise of success. Emile, the janitor, became an unexpected ally, guiding them through hidden passages and forgotten archives. One afternoon, Zane discovered something shocking while analyzing the lab's security cameras. There's more, he said. Look here. The footage showed a figure entering the lab after hours. Not Julian, not Fiona, someone else. Someone wearing the CEO's pass. Amara's world tilted. The CEO, the very person who represented the company's legacy. Delacroix frowned. This implicates the highest levels. The stakes were suddenly higher than Amara had imagined. Meanwhile, Fiona's public image began to crumble. Rumors leaked. Interviews grew colder. Social media exploded with speculation. Her carefully crafted persona began to unravel. She reached out to Amara one night. I want to meet, Fiona said. Amara hesitated, then replied, Fine, but on my terms. They met in a quiet cafe, away from prying eyes. Fiona's voice was lower than Amara remembered, her eyes flickering with something that wasn't arrogance. Maybe fear. I didn't want it to go this far, she said. I was under pressure. I thought I could control it. Control what? Amara asked. The game, the company, the legacy. They made me do things. Fiona's words hung heavy in the air. Amara left the cafe with more questions than answers. Back home, she found a package waiting. Inside was a leather-bound journal, Fiona's private diary. Pages revealed a world of manipulation, blackmail, and desperation. Fiona was a pawn, not just a player. With renewed resolve, Amara prepared to expose the full truth. She organized a press conference, inviting journalists, industry insiders, and the board members themselves. The day arrived, standing. At the podium, Amara's voice was steady but fierce. She recounted her journey, the theft, the betrayal, the hidden forces manipulating the lab's legacy. She presented evidence, emails, videos, diaries. The room was silent, hanging on every word. After the conference, the company announced a full investigation, pledging transparency and reform. Julian resigned quietly. The CEO stepped down amidst mounting pressure. Maison Vellier faced a reckoning. But for Amara, the victory was bittersweet. She had fought for truth. But at what cost? The world of luxury perfume was dazzling, but beneath it was a maze of shadows. She knew her fight had just begun. The morning after the press conference, Amara woke with a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The city outside was buzzing. With news reports and social media storms, Maison Vellier was at the center of a scandal bigger than anyone had imagined. But inside her heart, Amara felt a calm resolve. The truth was finally out. Her phone rang early. It was Inspector Delacroix. Amara. The investigation is progressing faster than expected. We've uncovered even more evidence. Financial records showing fraudulent transactions tied directly to the CEO and Julian. The board is preparing. A formal statement, Amara smiled. Justice in motion. Delacroix's voice softened. I know this has been hard, but you've done something extraordinary. Amara sat quietly, thinking back on the months of struggle. The late nights, the whispered threats, the moments of doubt. I couldn't have done it alone, she said. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Maison Vellier's board held emergency sessions, firing top executives and promising sweeping changes. Fiona, too, released a statement expressing regret and apologizing for her actions. A public step that shocked many but felt necessary. Amara was invited to return to the lab, not just as a scientist, but as a symbol of integrity and renewal. Walking back into the pristine halls felt surreal. This time, heads turned with respect, not dismissal. Her colleagues approached her with cautious smiles, offering apologies and support. In the weeks that followed, Amara spearheaded a new project, a fragrance inspired by resilience and truth. The scent was subtle yet powerful, capturing the essence of struggle and hope. When it launched, the response was overwhelming. Critics praised it not only for its artistry, but for the story it represented. One afternoon, as Amara worked in the lab, a small group gathered outside the glass walls. Among them was Emile, the janitor who had risked so much to help her. She beckoned him in. "Thank you," she said simply. Emile smiled shyly. "You brought light where there was darkness." Amara's story became an inspiration far beyond the perfume world. She spoke at conferences, sharing her experience of courage, ethics, and the power of standing up against injustice. Her voice, once quiet and overlooked, now carried weight and hope, but the journey wasn't without scars. Late at night, Amara sometimes felt the sting of betrayal, the weight of what she had lost. Yet, every time doubt crept in, she reminded herself why she had fought. One evening, Zane visited with news. "The company wants to expand the new project globally," he said, grinning. "They see the value in honesty." Amara laughed softly. Who would have thought? As the sun set over the city, Amara stood on her apartment balcony, inhaling the cool air. The world was changing, slowly, imperfectly, but undeniably. Her scent, born from pain and perseverance, floated on the breeze. It was a reminder that even in the darkest places, truth could bloom.